than them. So the first tip comes from a really interesting social psychology experiment. In the social psychology experiment, the social psychologist, an academic working in a university department, recruits some students to be confederates of the experimenter. He sends the students out on a date. They invite people to come on a date with the student. The person invited to come on the date thinks it's just a date, but actually there's a social psychology experiment going on. The social psychologist instructs the student, who's the confederate of the experimenter, to, throughout the date, agree with everything the other person is saying. Then at the end of the date, it's revealed that actually there was a social psychology experiment going on, and a rating is secured for how attractive the student confederate was found, given how they behaved during the date. In the first condition of the experiment, the student confederate goes out and just agrees with everything the other person says on the date, and an attraction rating is secured at the end, and people are found moderately attractive in that condition. In the second condition of the experiment, the student confederate is sent out on the date and is instructed to disagree with everything the other person says. So it goes a bit like this. "Oh, I really like this restaurant you've picked. I think it's really lovely. What do you think?" "No, I don't like it." "I thought the fish was rather nice. What do you think about it?" "No, I don't like it." Comes as no surprise if you spend a whole date doing that, disagreeing with everything the other person says, you're not really found very attractive at all. So far, so obvious. Now, the third condition of the experiment is where things get really interesting. In the third condition of the experiment, the student confederate is sent out with the instruction to spend the first half of the date disagreeing with everything the other person says, and then to switch and start agreeing for the second half of the date. And amazingly enough, you are found most attractive of all in this condition. Now, why is that? There's some rather complex social psychological theories going on as to what's going on here, so I'm going to cut to the chase and give you what I think is the most profound and important theory. You see, the other person on the date didn't realize there was a Machiavellian manipulative plot afoot, whereby you were just watching for the clock to hit a certain time, and then you're going to switch. What their experience of you was that you were rather difficult in the first half of the date, and then you warmed up to them, and they think they had an impact on you. They think they warmed you up. And there's something about having an impact which is very seductive. Now, there are many objections to this experiment. People always say, yes, I can see that's seductive, but you're playing a game. Why can't we just be ourselves? Well, you can just be yourself if you want, but be aware of something, which is that there are many people out there that are playing the game of life, and they're playing it rather hard. And as a result, they're terrifically successful. They're really good in job interviews, and they're very good as politicians at getting elected. So if you're not going to play the game of life, that's fine, but be aware that you might run into trouble if everyone else is playing the game of life. The other important idea here is you can divide relationships into three key phases: attention, interest, and maintenance. You walk into a bar, you see a very attractive person. Wow! They've got your attention. Hopefully, you've got their attention. Then you go over and talk to them, and you get to know them, and now you're entering the interest phase. And then maybe after a few days or weeks, you might transition into the maintenance phase, which is long-term commitment. Now, the key point about this idea is that different skills are required depending on which phase you're in. It's a profoundly important social psychological model in terms of getting a handle on and understanding business relationships, friendships, and of course, romantic seductions. Now, even if you want to reject the attention, interest, and maintenance phase, it's a very powerful model. We all know people who we think, this is a wonderful person. How come they're single? Well, maybe they're really good at maintenance, and they're not so good at attention or interest. So the model's really helpful in diagnosing problems in terms of seduction. And one other point I want to make is even if you end up in a long-term committed relationship doing maintenance, if your relationship's going to be successful and last 40 years or 50 years, I believe you've got to cycle back through attention, interest,